Move around your face. Open up the mouth. Move around your nose. Open the mouth nice and big. Face open wide. Eyes open wide. And shut it all up. Close it in. And open it up. Waggle your tongue. And close it down. And open it up. And shut it down. Bit of a hum. Good. Let's go for our chainsaw. Okay, now we're going to go the same thing. We're going to get in this key, and this time we're going to go for a more of a this sound, the siren. Zing! So it's a sing. So we're going to go sing, 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 sing. Two more. Sing. One more. Okay. Shake it out. Good. And just shake out the bottom, the legs. I know that we've either spent the whole day or we're about to spend the whole day on Zoom, on our computers. So shake out the legs, our ankles. Free up all the tension in our hips. Make sure we're using the arms, using the shoulders, and really shaking them out. And lengthening our spine. Imagining that our spine is continuing all the way to the ceiling, but we're keeping the shoulders nice and relaxed. So it's not like this. It's nice and extended, but also very relaxed. All right, nice poise. Very good. Okay, shake, shake, shake. And let's just breathe. So in for 4. Out for 4. In for 6. Out for 6. In for 4. Out for 8. In for 4. Out for 10 on a hush. In for 4. Last one out for 12 on a hush. Okay, good. You want to sit down, get comfortable? I'm going to share the screen here, and we're going to use all those warm-ups just to get ourselves in the right place for our pronunciation of the language and everything else that we're going to be doing with these new songs. So, we've got this week, the theme of this week is exile. So we had the literary in week 1, last week we had the seaweed, and this week it's exile. So we're going to learn 2 songs of exile, and they're emigration songs. They are songs associated with leaving Ireland, with remembering Ireland. And firstly, we'd like to recap Dooloman, and just see how we're feeling about it. We'll work on one of the other verses. We'll go back to the chorus, and then we're going to look at 2 really, really beautiful songs. Some of them might be familiar. Slieve Gallion Braes is about a mountain up in Ulster, and then we've got Rambling Irishman, which is a song it's about leaving Ireland, going to the east coast of America, Philadelphia particularly. So we've done our warm-up, so let's go into Dooloman, and we'll start with any questions. Do you guys have any questions about Dooloman? How was it to look at? How was it last week? How did you feel about the words?
Well, I mean, it's challenging because of the speed, I guess, but also I think it's easier to listen to you and then repeat rather than almost try to read it because
Yeah.
it's so different, it's so different. But then at the same time, I will say, having been to Ireland and trying to read some of the signs or like, how would you pronounce that? It's not as difficult as I imagined it would be. But the other thing, the Gaelic, it seems like there's a vowel at the beginning of that word that is specific that I'm not quite sure
Mm.
that I'm getting that.
Yeah,
You know?
it's a softer vowel. Yeah, very good. It actually it's part of the consonant. Interestingly, the consonant is a particular guttural sound that impacts the following vowel. So I think what you're hearing is the Gaelach, the
Mm,
Gaelach. It's almost, if I were to simplify it, it would be like a U, like a Gaelach. But
mhm.
it's a lot less than that. It's a lot closer to the A. So it's Gaelach, Gaelach. Imagine a very soft W, a very soft W. Gaelach. So dula man. Let's just say it together. You can mute yourself and repeat after me. Dula man bin bui. Dula man bin bui. Dula man gaelach. Dula man gaelach. Dula man farige. Dula man farige. Dula man gaelach. Dulaman. Go ahead, let's go into the verse. Anin vi no shin anal fair huri. Anin vi no shin anal fair huri. Awahar vi no kurna rahalin gojime. Awahar vi no kurna rahalin gojime. Tá ceann buí ór a dúla man gaelach. Tá ceann buí ór a dúla man gaelach. Tá rá clúis bhfuil a dúla man gaelach. Tá rá clúis bhfuil a dúla man gaelach. Next one. Rahamwij kunyor lesh an dula man gaelach. Listen. Rahamwij kunyor lesh an dula man. One more time. Rahamwij kunyor lesh an dula man gaelach. Go. Rahamwij kunyor. And then it's Canoimid broga dera dula man gaelic. So the rhythm changes here. Canoimid broga dera. Canoimid broga dera. Canoimid broga dera. So we got broga. Brog means shoes. The broga, the shoes. Dera means dear or expensive. Broga dera, dear shoes, expensive brogues. Canoimid, we will buy. Canoimid, brogadera. Go. Canoimid, brogadera. Go. Canoimid, brogadera. Last time. Canoimid, brogadera. An dula man gaelach. Dula man gaelach. Last one. Broga. So we got the shoes again. Broga, bracha, dua. So dua is black. Dove or do. So the black shoes, bright like new black shoes, shiny black shoes. Broga bracha duva dula man gaela. Go. Broga bracha duva dula man. And then we got the beret and the trush, the trousers and the hat. Tá barid agus trúis a dúla man gaela. Go. Tá barid agus trúis a dúla man gaela. Good. Let's go singing through. Nice, and let's keep that beat. Dúla man na bui dú. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Dúla manna binna bui, dúla man gelach, dúla manna fariga, dúla man gelach. Repeat. Dúla manna binna bui, dúla man gelach, dúla manna fariga, dúla man gelach. Anin vi no skänden alle förhörig. Hawa vi no karner allen gudjime. Verse 1 again. Anin vi no skänden alle förhörig. Hawa vi no karner allen gudjime. Chorus. Dúla manna binna bui, dúla man gelach, dúla manna fariga, dúla man gelach. Second verse. Ta cian bui or dúla man gelach, ta ga cluish well dúla man gelach. Repeat. Ta cian bui or dúla man gelach, ta ga cluish well dúla man gelach. Chorus. Dúla man binna bui, dúla man gelach, dúla man fariga, dúla man gelach. Third verse. Rahim which can your lesh and dúla man gelach, can no image broga der dúla man gelach. Again. Rahim which can your lesh and dúla man gelach, can no image broga der dúla man gelach. Dúla manna binna bui, dúla man gelach, dúla manna fariga, dúla man gelach. So you heard that time I'm adding the syncopation, I'm adding the push. Listen to the difference. Dúla manna binna bui, dúla man gelach. Verses. Dúla manna binna bui, dúla man gelach, dúla man fariga, dúla man gelach. So if you're confident with that rhythm, you can throw that in. You can vary it up to you. Last verse. Broga bracha dúla man gelach, tabarid agus true share dúla man gelach. Again. Broga bracha dúla man gelach, tabarid agus true share dúla man gelach. And you can hear that I'm starting to run in some little in-between notes, passing notes, in between the actual main notes of the melody. Broga bracha dúla man gelach, tabarid agus true shara dúla man gelach. You know, I'm throwing in little ornaments, little rolls around, giving a little more embellishment to the melody. Again, the more you get to know the melody, you can throw those in. It's a very flexible thing. You know, when you sing a traditional melody, you can add your own little touches. And again, you don't need to do them every single time. You can throw them in when you want. You can throw them in certain verses for certain words. For instance, when the rhythm is different. Whatever you want to do. If you want to do that. Those are little examples. So let's do the verse one more time. Sorry, the final chorus one more time. Let's go back into this key. Dúla manna binna bui, 1, 2, 3. Dúla manna binna bui, dúla man gelach, dúla manna fariga, dúla man gelach. All right. Any questions?
So when the text has an IS, it seems like it's a sh sound.
For example, is. Oh, in the word, in the middle of a word.
Or at the end of a word.
Yes, the I makes the S. It gives it this sh sound. Whereas often, for instance, if the S is at the beginning of a word or the SH, it sometimes disappears. So aníon bhíonó shin, that's SI, anal a fair huri, and we remove the S altogether. So we just go for the H. A war bhíonó kun wrong to kian cluish, yeah. And then you've also got trush, the trousers. So, and then leis, lesh. So yeah, exactly. We're having the is together. That makes a sh sound. It's almost is is in English sh. Yeah. So it's pretty much a sturdy rule. Good. But yeah, you're right. It's not a phonetic language necessarily. It doesn't read as you see it in the same way for us. In the same way that Italian and Spanish would read as you read it, as long as you get the vowels right. Each vowel, each consonant can change depending on the previous consonant or the previous vowel or the following. So yeah, it's one of those you need to get it on your ear, for sure. But really good. We'll come up with this. We'll do this again next week. It's just another thing to get you confident on the melody, to get you confident on those rhythms. And again, if you have a look at the English language versions of the song, then you can always add in your own English language versions. But it gives you a nice sense of or even a lilt. So it's nice to get that appreciation of the rhythm and how it works on the voice. Brilliant. All good, Una? Now, Slieve Gallion Braes is the first song that we've got here. So, Slieve Gallion Braes, traditional. We're going to learn a little bit about the story behind it, and we're going to learn a little bit about the context. But let's look firstly at the text, and I want to sing it for you. Let's pick. Okay, so I'll give you the first verse. As I went a walking one morning in May, to view yon fair valleys and mountains so gay, I was thinking on the flowers all doomed to decay, that bloom around you, bonny, bonny, Slieve Gallion Braes. Go for the second verse. It's oft in the morning with me dog and me gun, I roam through the glenside for joy and for fun. With the taxes getting higher, I can no longer pay. So farewell unto you, bonny, bonny, Slieve Gallion Braes. Okay? And it's a lovely, continues there. We'll have a look at the text here. It's oft in the evening and the sun in the west, I roved hand in hand with the one I love best. But those days they are all over, and I am far away. So farewell unto you, bonny, bonny Slieve Gallion Braes. And then the last one, it's not for the want of employment at home that causes the son of old Ireland to roam, but those tyrannizing landlords, they will not let me stay. So farewell unto you, bonny, bonny, Slieve Gallion Braes. All right. So let's have a look. Slieve Gallion is in the Sperrin Mountains in the counties Tyrone and Derry in Northern Ireland. So if you imagine the island of Ireland, it's right up at the top in the middle. That's where the Sperrins are, right up at the top in the middle. And it's believed that this song first was written and first was sung in the Irish language, and that this song that we know now was a translation into something that could be sung in the English language, which was increasingly being spoken in the 18th and 19th centuries across Ireland, and especially in Ulster. So it is associated with the singing of Francis McPeake of Belfast. So this is Francis McPeake roughly was noteworthy and became popular in the 1950s and 60s, around the same time as the folk revival came over to America and went to Europe, and people were touring all over Germany and the United States and all over the world, bringing music to China and Japan. That this was 1960s, it was a huge time for folk music and Irish folk music. And this is one of the songs that Francis McPeake sang and made famous. And Francis McPeake is also known for Wild Mountain Thyme, which was a traditional song, which was a song, Will You Go Lassie Go? It was known for hundreds of years. But the McPeake family of Belfast, they were able to copyright that song, so that every time that song is used, every time that song is recorded and sung and used in TV and television ads, that they get the credit for it, which is interesting because it is a traditional song, and they themselves have spoken about how they heard the song and versions of the song before that in Scotland and in Ireland before, but they managed to get the legal copyright, so they were able to do that. And Wild Mountain Thyme is therefore kind of associated with the McPeake family for that reason. But this version of Slieve Galley Braes, it was arranged by Karl Hardebeck, which is a blind German-Welsh musician born in London. And he was an arranger of Irish traditional music. He was classically trained, but he did a lot of work bringing Irish traditional music into the chamber music and the sort of repertoire of chamber musicians. This is people who played the piano. They had pianos in their houses, and they were able to play music from all over the world, classical music, but also traditional music. And there was a real revival of Gaelic culture, of Irish traditional identity. And this was around the time of around 1900, the end of century, beginning of the 21st century. And the songs themselves were made a lot more popular because these classically trained musicians and arrangers and composers made them available to classical players. And this meant that teachers and that educated musicians were able to access it and therefore teach it and bring it into schools, bring it into homes. So it's one of the big reasons why the folk revival of the 1960s happened, was because of the revival of the 1880s and 1890s, when these people were writing this music. So it's interesting to see the waves, if you like, of folk revival and folk music and folk identity. And it definitely was born on the back of this nationalism, this growing nationalism of the end of the 19th century. It's all tied in. So that's why Hardebeck was reputedly one of the instigators of the 1950s folk revival, which was big in Ireland and England and made its way over to America and all across Europe as well. But interestingly, because it was all associated with Irish nationalism, the fact that Hardebeck was German-Welsh, born in London, he wasn't really brought into the folk circles. We talked in week 1 about how these literary figures, these giants of English literature, these poets, these playwrights, they were brought into the Irish folk identity. They were brought into traditional music because they were writing music that was considered Irish. Music and words, but mostly text, mostly stories and poems and plays. But because they were Irish or considered Irish, they were welcomed in, and their works were associated with the traditional music scene. But many people, including Hardebeck, they were excluded because they were not Irish. And this was fierce. This was this identity game. It was at play the whole time, and it became very, very important. And to be honest, it still is very important. But I think in this new wave of folk music that we're seeing in the last 10 years, identity is much more fluid. And that's a reflection of the world we're living in. The globalism has affected folk culture, So although people are trying to protect it and keep it alive, they're aware that the internet knows no boundaries. You can't contain something that cannot be contained when you're talking about the internet, and how people move around, speak different languages. So that's a positive, and it means that these things can be shared, but the Irishness associated with it isn't as fierce. So we've got an unusual melody. We're going to go back and learn it and sing it together, and we'll discuss the melody a little bit more as we're singing it. Imagery, we've got these decaying flowers, the sun in the west, and the landlords and the taxes. So the decaying flowers, this dying, this end of life, the sun in the west, the sun setting, the day dying, and then we've got political, we've got this negative, this threat, this something that's driving them away. The repetition of the last line as the chorus, that's something that is a feature of session singing and of group singing. So it's an important thing, and we'll feel that as we're singing it. Then we've got the ornamentation as well. So we've got so farewell unto, just going to take it down a little bit. So farewell unto you, bonny, bonny, sleeved galleon braids. That's without the ornaments, and this is with a little bit of a roll. So farewell unto you, bonny, bonny, sleeved galleon braids. Do that again. So farewell unto you, bonny, bonny, sleeve galleon braids. So it's just a little bit of a lift. Each note goes, so farewell unto you. Let's try that. So farewell unto you. 4 times, here we go. So farewell unto you. 3rd time, and so farewell unto you. 4th time, here we go. So farewell unto you, bonny, bonny, sleeve galleon braid. Sleeve galleon brace, and use the L. Sleeve galleon brace. Again. Sleeve galleon brace. Again. Sleeve galleon brace. The whole thing. So farewell unto you, bonny, bonny, sleeve galleon brace. Good. Now you'll notice, as I did it there, the meter was a bit more straight, whereas when I was singing it before, there's a lot more rubato, a lot more give and take. It's led by the text. So you'll feel that now as we go back. So let's go. Here we go. So I'm going to go first verse, line by line. We're going to stick in this key. Is that very low for you, or is it okay? As I went a walking, good for Terry, okay. And I know it knows an alto, so that should be fine. As I went a walking one morning in May. Let's go. As I went a walking one morning in May. Again. As I went a walking one morning in May. Last time. As I went a walking one morning in May. So this is a very traditional first line. You might have heard songs that are pretty much identical. You might have read this line hundreds of times. As I went a walking one morning in May. And this line it's actually the first line of a 14th century French poem. So this was a style that French poets and medieval poets, they were writing, and they wrote this form. It always started with going on a walk in a beautiful sort of pastoral scene in the May morning, or a June morning, or summer morning, a summer fair, and it's called the Pastourelle. And it's this form where the poet is always walking and meets a woman, uh, around there's usually some kind of conflict where they want to either get together with the woman, or they can't get together, or the man's moving away, or the woman's moving away, or the woman is too rich and the man is poor, or the man is wealthy and the woman is poor, or the man is going to war and he has to say goodbye to the woman even before they've got to meet each other. So it's kind of this encounter, but it dates all the way back to 14th century France. And it's just fascinating to know that as we sing these. It might sound repetitive all the time, it's unoriginal, keep coming back. But the reason is because it's part of this tradition, this line of poetry, this line of songs that are hundreds and hundreds of years old. So it's good to bear that with it every single time we sing it. So let's go one more time. As I went a walking one morning in May. Next line. To view yon fair valleys and mountains so gay. To view yon fair valleys and mountains so gay. To view yon fair valleys and mountains so gay, so gay, so gay, so gay, so gay. To view yon fair valleys and mountains so gay. Let's do the first two lines. As I went a walking one morning in May, to view yon fair valleys and mountains so gay, I was thinking on the flowers all doomed to decay. Let's do that one. Nice long line, big long phrase. I was thinking on the flowers. Do that again. I was thinking on the flowers. You can lean into these notes. I was thinking on the flowers. So it's not just rhythmic, but it's also a little bit of melodic lean into that. I was thinking on the flowers, all doomed to decay. And you want to lift up the decay, and you open up and you use the mouth open when you use that AY. Decay, because otherwise it'll be hard to get that interval. Decay, decay, decay. Just open up a little bit of a smile and open that mouth. I was thinking on the flowers, all doomed to decay, that bloom around you, bonny, bonny, sleeve galleon bray. That bloom around you, bonny, bonny, sleeve galleon bray. Okay, let's go for the whole first verse. And then I might need to just run for 30 seconds to get my charger, if you don't mind. Let's go for the first verse. As I went a walking one morning in May, to view yon fair valleys and mountains so gay, I was thinking on the flowers all doomed to decay, that bloom around you, bonny, bonny, sleeve galleon braes. Good. Now, have a think of that. I just need to run before my laptop cuts out, and I'll ask if there's any questions or anything that you need to go over again. And I want to add in just a few more ornaments and see if we can tie some of these lines together, because there's a few nice little things we can do. Okay, give me 30 seconds. Okay, any questions on that melody? Anything about the tonality or anything? All good? All right. Let's look at it again, and I'm going to sing it a little bit more freely this time before we move on to the second verse. So I'm going to keep in this key. As I went a walking one morning in May, to view yon fair valleys and mountains so gay, I was thinking on the flowers all doomed to decay that bloom round you, bonny, bonny, Slieve Gallion Braes. All right. So, did you notice my phrasing changed actually? So instead of breathing at the end of every line, as you're reading it, I broke it. So I went, I was thinking on the flowers, breathe, change, all doomed to decay that bloom around you, bonny, bonny, breathe, Slieve Gallion Braes. So that actually gives it gives a cadence towards the end. So Slieve Gallion Braes, you'll notice that we've got that every time. We've got the bloom around you, farewell unto you, bonny, bonny. So that's the chorus. A lot of folk songs, you will have the last line as a commodity. You know, everybody knows it, so they sing along. So it's nice that you have this Slieve Gallion Braes each time. So let me sing that again, and you can join in, bearing in mind you're going to breathe. I was thinking on the flowers, breathe, all doomed to decay, that bloom around you, bonny, bonny. So it's quite a long phrase, what I'm doing, but see how it feels. Here we go. As I went a walking one morning in May, to view yon fair valleys and mountains so gay, I was thinking on the flowers all doomed to decay that bloom round you, bonny, bonny, Slieve Gallion Braes. Let's go on. It's oft in the morning with me dog and my gun, I roam through the glenside for joy and for fun. With the taxes getting higher, I can no longer pay. So farewell unto you, bonny, bonny, Slieve Gallion Braes. It's oft in the evening and the sun in the west, I rode hand in hand with the one I love best. But those days, they are all over, and I am far away. So farewell unto you, bonny, bonny, Slieve Gallion Braes. It's not for the want of employment at home that causes the son of old Ireland to roam, but those tyrannizing landlords, they will not let me stay. So farewell unto you, bonny, bonny, Slieve Gallion Braes. So farewell unto you, bonny, bonny, Slieve Gallion Braes. So sometimes you might have a repeat of the very last line, just a nice, sort of full stop at the end there. So it's a lovely melody, and it's really interesting. It gives you enough, and I like, as you can hear, I like to play around with the tonality and move in and out. I just love how it flows, and you can change the tempo, you can change how it moves. That's not for the want of employment at home. I usually try to make that one quite a bit shorter. And then, for instance, it's oft in the evening and the sun in the west. That's kind of this, the day is coming to dusk, it's ending, it's dying. So I try to get that through in the phrasing. I roved hand in hand with the one I love best, but those days, they are all over. And you can really close that over. And I am far away, so farewell. So you got a nice big, almost defiant, and you can open that up. I am far away, so farewell. Yeah, so there's loads to play with. Really nice lyrical work in that. And also, I'll give you these brilliant versions. Dolores Keane and John Faulkner, absolutely fantastic version of that. Really nice harmony as well. It's worth checking out. And then you've got Mary McPartlin as well, a lovely version. And Swan Arcade, which is a 3-part voice. It used to be on YouTube, and it's no longer on YouTube. I've been looking for it for years, and even trying to buy it. It's very, very difficult. But it's an English from north of England, this trio of folk singers, and really, really good stuff. But yeah, those 3 will get you started anyway. But even if you type in what Slieve Gallion Braes, you'll find millions of versions, I'd say. All right. So, any questions on that before we move on?
Yep. What key is that in, Donald?
So that one we were singing was A major. Well, sorry, it starts in A. So it's in. Comes into A major, so it starts A, E, Do, So. But then that's a minor 7th. So it's modal. So it's not a major scale. So if you hear Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do. But this is in a modal. Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ta, Do. So it's a lovely, even just to listen to it. Da 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 da. Lovely modal 7th, which I think really just warms this whole song up. But yeah, A major if you're looking to bang it out on the piano. All right. Now, Rambling Irishman. So these are songs of exile. So of course we have the theme in Slieve Gallion Braes where farewell unto you, bonny bonny, Slieve Gallion Braes. Slieve means mountain, Slieve in Irish, and it's talking about the mountain itself. Goodbye to the mountain, I'm leaving, but I'm leaving the place. It's because of the landlords, it's because of the tax, I can't pay the rent, I'm being evicted, I have to leave because I can't get jobs that are paying enough for me to stay here. And then we have in this song leaving, basically emigrating to America, to Philadelphia. So, and again, it's an Ulster song. I am a rambling Irishman. In Ulster I was born in. Many happy hours I spent on the banks of sweet Lough Erne. So Lough Erne, as we have a photo of it at the beginning here, Lough Erne, County Fermanagh. So it's one of the bigger lakes on the island. Lough Erne, County Fermanagh, which is in Ulster and in Northern Ireland. So let's go for maybe I'll sing it for you, and then we've got a chorus, we've got a proper chorus. I am a rambling Irishman, in Ulster I was born in, and many's the happy hours I spent on the banks of sweet Loch Erne. But to live poor I would not endure, as others of my station. To America I sailed away, to leave this Irish nation. Right hand in the na, hand in the na, right hand in the no, Ranandi. Right hand in the na, hand in the na, right hand in the no, Ranandi. The night before I went away, I spent it with my darling from 3 o'clock in the afternoon till the break of day next morning. But when that we were going to part, we linked each other's arms. And you may be sure and very sure it wounded both our charms. Right hand in the na, hand in the na, right hand in the no, Ranandi. The very first night I slept on board, I dreamed about my Nancy. I dreamed I held her in my arms, and well she pleased my fancy. But when I woke out of my sleep, I found my bosom empty. And you may be sure and very sure that I lay discontented. Right hand in the na, hand in the na, right hand in the no, Ranandi. When we arrived on the other side, we were both stout and healthy. We dropped our anchors in the bay, and we went down to Philadelphia. So let every lass link with her lad in blue jacket and white trousers, and let every lad link with his lass, blue petticoat and white flounces. Right hand in the na, hand in the na, right hand in the no, Ranandi. Right hand in the na, hand in the na, right hand in the no, Ranandi. So you can sense that the chorus is real, rousing, and it's a lilt, and it's something that anyone can join in. You only really need to hear it once. I repeated the first chorus just for you to hear it, but generally it'd be one chorus in between, and then the last one would be double. I think the double chorus each time is quite long.
So this one seems like it has more of this, like that very, like a more standard rhythm, where it reminds me of some of the American, folk songs in a way, just with the predictable, more metric.
Yeah, exactly. Very strong. And that's the thing. Like, this is a kind of foot stomper. If you were at a session in Donegal or in a pub in Dublin, people would be all boom, boom with the foot.
Is it 2/4? Would you say it's in 2/4? Or would you say it's
rambling Irishman? Well, see, the way I'm skipping beats and stuff with the phrasing, I'd say it's 2/4 3/4 kind of thing, but in maybe a loose 2/4. I am a rambling Irishman, beat in Ulster I was born in, and many happy hours I spent, beat on the banks of, and that's my version. I've heard lots of singers do that. Not every singer does that, but then I like to leave it out in the third line because I think it's nice to give that the phrase of the third line to itself. But to live poor I would not endure, as others of my station. Instead of, but to live poor I would not endure, beat, as others of my station, beat. I think it's just too many gaps.
Mhm.
And just to go through that third line each time, I think it gives it a lovely, just gives it nice length, and then it sets up the final line. So I think the phrasing of that, it's the best one that I've heard, that I've found. So it's, and I have heard versions that go, I am a rambling Irishman in Ulster I was born in, and many happy hours I spend on the banks of sweet Loch Earn. But too, so there's your only breath, there's your only break as such. But I think that's pretty grueling. It's pretty hard to do, and I'd rather enjoy singing it, So I'd rather give a nice boom beat down in the middle of the phrase. So let's have a look about it. We've got folk singer and collector Len Graham, who's also another Ulsterman. In his book Here I Am Amongst You, so we've got this sort of tradition of folk singers writing these sort of travelogues where they travel around Ireland, they travel across the mountains, and it's the same thing in America, I'd say, in the Appalachians and all across the East Coast and all down the south. And we've had this tradition of folk collectors and song collectors all over Europe, all over the world, and we've got the same thing here in Ireland, where they collect from singers, they collect from storytellers, and they all put them into these books, and these resources become very, very precious and rich fonts of history and story and context of all these songs. So this, according to Len Graham, predates the Great Famine of the late 1840s. So he believes this song has links to Presbyterian immigration from Ulster. So the Presbyterians, they would have come originally from Scotland during the plantation in the 1600s, and from Scotland when they planted, it would have been done as a government policy in order to take land from the Gaelic families, the sort of Irish Gaelic families who would have been clans with chieftains and kings, and sort of getting rid of that. This was happening gradually, but in the 1600s it was a mass policy over about 50 years. And that was the end of a legacy of heritage, of culture, of language, of songs and stories and traditions. But the Presbyterians they started their sort of tradition. They started their traditions and heritage there. And it was they were subject to penal laws barring them from higher education, so similar to Catholics in the 19th century. So like a lot of Catholics, the Presbyterians, who were Protestant, but they weren't the elite Protestant, they weren't the sort of government Protestant, they were also forced to leave Ireland, and they were a lot of them went to America as well. And from the 1680s until the American Revolution temporarily cut off shipping, at least 250,000 of these Presbyterians sailed to North America. And then in 1783, after the American Revolution, there was an even larger wave of Ulster Presbyterians, and a lot of these people went on to be very, very successful politicians in America, and a lot of these political families, a lot of these dynasties in a lot of the eastern states, East Coast states, they trace themselves back to these Ulster Presbyterians, if not Irish Catholic families that emigrated during the Great Famine. So these types of songs, this story, this rambling Irishman would have been a very, very common type, a very common figure in the folklore, in the storytelling that was coming from the island of Ireland over to America in the 19th century. And this song has obviously lasted because it's got a great melody, it's got a great story, and it's quite cheeky. And we can look a bit more at the lyrics, and I like the cheekiness of it. So we had about 500,000 Ulster Presbyterians in America by the end of the 19th century, which again, that's not long ago at all. It's start of the 20th century basically. 500,000 had emigrated, and Philadelphia was one of the main ports of entry, as well as New York and Boston. But a lot of them settled all along the East Coast, Eastern Seaboard, not only in America but also in Canada. Nova Scotia was obviously got a huge Scottish tradition there, and Newfoundland as well. Very, very popular amongst sort of former British people, former Irish people who went over, and it's a fascinating thing. There's a PhD in it itself, but this song is just one little insight into that kind of heritage. So we've got this repeated sing-along chorus. Right hand in the na, hand in the na, right hand in the no, nandi. And we've got a little bit of an ornament just at the end. Nandi, nandi. And I usually sing it on the N. Nandi. So let's keep it open for now. Let's try it. Nandi, nandi. Nandi. 5 more times. Nandi. 4. Nandi. 3. Nandi. 2. Nandi. And 1. Nandi. Right hand in the na. Hand in the na. Right hand in the no, nandi, nandi. And it's a nice thing that everybody can join in on at the end. So we'll go through it. Lilting, we'll practice it a bit more as we sing the song, but lilting is this style of mouth music, traditionally sung to replace instrumental melodies. Now, lilting became very popular amongst people who didn't have access to instruments or never got to learn the instrument. So you might have a lilter at a party or a session who was a great singer, but the lilters, the reason that the sessions happened, the reason that people gathered, the reason that people wanted to come to listen to this music was for dancing. And it was lively music, and that's why the vast majority of Irish traditional instrumental music is dance music. It's jigs and reels, and it's all meant for dancing and moving. And this idea of the folk song, of the sean nós song, the sean nós being the old way, this solo song, these were only ever sung to give the instrumentalists a break. And this is something that still happens. The songs, you don't hear that many songs at a session unless it's a singing session, unless it's a song circle or a song session. But when you go to an ordinary session, songs are few and far between, and that's the way that's the way the instrumentalists like it. So singing was only to be heard maybe every hour and a half, maybe every 2 hours, one song, maybe 2 songs, while the players were having a break, having a smoke outside, getting a drink, whatever. And lilting was also one of these things when the instrumentalists, when the fiddlers and the whistlers and the uilleann pipers and the accordion players, when they're getting their drink, when they're going to the toilet, when they're having a smoke outside, the lilter can keep the dancing going with his mouth or with her mouth. And this is a nice little instrument. This is a use of the lilt. Obviously, I'm not a lilter, but you've heard it before. And then you can speed up, and it's really some skill. But that was the function of that, was to give the instrumentalists a break. And it became obviously something that singers could bring to the dance themselves. And yeah, go ahead.
Is it kind of like I'm trying to think of another word too, but it kind of reminds me of yodeling, but not quite the same style. Just like that concept though. Is it similar?
I think so. I think it's coming from a different heritage, a different place, a different history behind it. And I think the technique, obviously yodeling is its own vocal technique. It's not something that a singer can do necessarily. It's not the same thing. It's not just textual. It's not linguistic. It's actually vocal in terms of how you're producing that sound. But yeah, I think the function of it comes from a similar place. It's to replace instruments and to make textures with the voice that aren't just song-based, that aren't just linguistic. So
I may have missed this, but so the actual chorus, is it more just linguistic lilting, or does it actually, do the words mean something too, or not?
No, they don't mean anything. If anything, they're kind of they're supposed to be meaningless, which is their meaning. They actually have meaning in that they have no meaning. So they're used because they have no meaning. But for that, they're very important because the similar sounds, the similar words, the similar little phrases get used all the time. So actually they become meaningful phrases that you use in songs. So you would hear right hand tintanar, right hand tintanur and Andy, right hand tintana. You'd hear it in different songs,
Okay.
even though it's actually meaningless.
Gotcha.
So it's like a little phrase unto itself. But yeah, we'll go back and we'll sing it now. Here we go. So let's stick. We were in F major, I think. Let's start with the chorus. Right hand in the na. So here's your right hand. So starting on mi fa so. Right hand in the na. Hand in the na. Right hand in the no. Ranandi. Now with the ornament. Right hand in the na. Hand in the na, right hand in the no, ranandi, right hand in the na, hand in the na, right hand in the no, ranandi. I am a rambling Irishman. Breathe. In Ulster I was born in, and many happy hours I spent. Breathe. On the banks of sweet Loch Erne. But to live poor I would not endure, as others of my station. Breathe. To America I sailed away, to leave this Irish nation. Right hand in the na, hand in the na, right hand in the no, ranandi. Now you might notice that we have the rhyme America, America. I generally don't like singing America because I think it's just strange. America, it's not even an accent thing. I think it's just a poetic thing. It rhymes with more words. So I sailed away, America, and that vowel, the away, a, it rhymes with so many more words that America gets used on again and again in songs and poetry. And we've got it down Philadelphia. So we've got stout and healthy Philadelphia. Philadelphia. So I've heard different versions. I've heard Philadelphia. I've heard Philadelphia. You're going Philadelphia. And I've heard Philadelphia, which again is different. But up to you, whatever you want to do. I go Philadelphia. And I go Philadelphia. Let's go for second verse. The night before I went away, breathe, I spent it with my darling from 3 o'clock in the afternoon, breathe, till the break of day next morning. So there, just to let you know, I'm cutting some of the phrases a little bit shorter. So instead of darling, morning, arms, and also arms, making it into 2 syllables. It's kind of what's done there. Charms. It's kind of funny, but you don't have to do that. You can go arms, but arms. It's kind of more playful. But what I do with that is till the break of 3 o'clock in the afternoon, till the break of day next morning. So I change it morning. I go morning, and I do the same thing with, and well she pleased my fancy, because it just emphasizes she pleased my fancy. So in his dreams he's being pleased. I just think it's funny to emphasize the fancy on that. Let's go from but when that we were going to part, third line of second verse. But when that we were going to part, we linked each other's arms. Breathe. You may be sure and very sure it wounded both our charms. Right hand in the na, hand in the na, right hand in the no, nandi. Let's speed up. The very first night I slept on board, I dreamt about my Nancy. I dreamt I held her in my arms, and well she pleased my fancy. But when I woke out of my sleep, I find my bosom empty. Breathe. You may be sure and very sure that I lay discontented. Right hand in the na, hand in the na, boom, night hand in the no, nandi. And you can even hear that now. You've got the right hand in the na, hand in the na, boom, right? You know, like a big stamp or a big clap or something. Right hand. Okay, last verse. When we arrived on the other side, breathe. We were both stout and healthy. We dropped our anchor in the bay, breathe, and went down to Philadelphia. So let every lass link with her lad in blue jacket and white trousers, and let every lad link with his lass, blue petticoat and white flounces. Right hand in the na, hand in the na, boom, right hand in the no, nandi. Right hand in the na, hand in the na, right hand in the no, nandi. All right. So I've given you a few versions. There are a brilliant version by the Donnan. Really, these are all excellent versions. So you can have a good listen to those. They're all on YouTube. So immigration, very important theme, and we've explored why for a lot of people, for a lot of different identities. As an island nation, the symbolism of leaving its shore is very poignant, and the meaning of those songs, therefore, will shift as Irish nationalism and the sense and identity of what Irishness is evolves. And in many ways, they can be compared to the exile songs of any nation. Just that Ireland's a small island with a big coastline, often leaving the shores is a very symbolic idea. But it may also be remembered that these songs have been translated from Irish into English, which changes it again. And if you think what that does to identity, how the language is lost, but the sentiment is retained, even that gets more complex when we think about what have we lost and what have those people who left Ireland for America, what have they lost? What have we lost through losing the language? What have we lost? And what do we keep? What do these songs tell us about our identity? And these are all very important questions. So, assignment would be to have another go at both of them, please. You don't have to do the whole thing, but both those songs, right, Antintana, the Sliabh Galleon Braes and the Sliabh Galleon Braes and the Ramblin' Irishman. All right. So, any questions before we finish? That was a packed lesson there. Loads of stuff in that class. So, it's good to look at Doulaman again, and we will look at Doulaman before next week, which is our final week. And if anything, I could really encourage you to do your assignment, to sing it, just to get it on your voice, even just for yourself to learn. And you'll learn vocally more about yourself, as well as actually, singing new material. And again, you have all these for looking on them. You have all the slides and stuff for your YouTube links to keep from now on anyway. All right.
So I had, I thought it went to December 3rd. Is that not the case?
This
Nope.
is, oh, you're right. This is week 3. It's week 5. Yeah, it's a 5-week course. I'm actually doing another course, which is a 4-week course, which is why I was
Okay.
confused. Thank you so much, Mary.
Okay.
This
I
is
just
week
checking,
3.
yeah.
There are 5 weeks.
Okay.
You're
And
sharp.
Thursday, so in the United States, we celebrate Thanksgiving next Thursday.
Okay.
But I don't really have a problem with still, coming to class or whatever, because I could do that, so it's no problem.
Okay, cool. Well, if you need to, if you need to leave early or whatever, you can always get the YouTube video. But yeah, it'd be great to see you. And yeah, in that case, next Thursday we'll see you, and I'll upload the video as usual. You can look back and listen to the lesson and get a bit of an idea of the ornaments and things.
Okay.
All good.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Una. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Una.
Bye bye, Terry.
Bye.